Welcome to Loco Gringo Mexico, where we can take you beyond the usual on your vacation. Each week we talk with amazing locals who know the Riviera Maya and Yucatan like only locals can. Get real tips to real places, insights on the local scene, culture, and cuisine from a local's perspective. So pour yourself a margarita, mezcal, or tequila, grab yourself a comfy chair, and let's get the show going.
The holiday season is a time for good cheer and friendship. As 2017 nears an end, here's a favorite podcast from this past year.
This episode is brought to you by Playa. You know, lots of people ask us for information and help when it comes to real estate, whether they're looking for retirement, an investment property, or maybe they're looking to relocate to the area. And we refer them over to our friends at Playa. The folks at Playa we've known for years, and they'll make sure that you, the buyer, are fully protected and informed when it comes to buying real estate. So if you're looking to buy a piece of paradise, check out our friends at buyplaya.com. We're going to be speaking to Amber Pierce, and she is from Detroit, Michigan, and she lives in Puerto Morelos. She relocated down here from Motor City back in 2004, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. She's raised her children here in the Riviera Maya, and so that's going to be a great conversation because you'll hear about some firsthand experiences about raising your kids down in Mexico. Amber runs a very popular blog about Puerto Morelos. She's going to share a little bit about that with us today, as well as her best recommendations on how you can have an authentic trip. This episode is brought to you by Playa. You know, lots of people ask us for information and help when it comes to real estate, whether they're looking for retirement, an investment property, or maybe they're looking to relocate to the area. And we refer them over to our friends at Playa. The folks at Playa we've known for years, and they'll make sure that you, the buyer, are fully protected and informed when it comes to buying real estate. So if you're looking to buy a piece of paradise, check out our friends at buyplaya.com. Hey, Amber, how are you this afternoon?
Hi, Kay. Great to talk to you. Absolutely awesome.
Hey, I'm so thrilled you had time you could carve out in your day to chat with us. I'm so thrilled to have you as a guest. And, you know, Amber, I got a burning question is, what's a Michigan girl doing in the Riviera Maya?
Well, you know, that's a good question. I moved to Puerto Morelos, and I never left. I started visiting Puerto Morelos and, about 1997, 1998, I guess, were my first trips down. And after I'd graduated from college, I decided that I was going to move down there full time. And so I did, and pretty shortly started my own company there, and it's kept me right in Puerto Morelos since 2004 when I moved down full time.
Now let me ask you. I know you're based in Puerto Morelos, so you moved there. Now, did you explore other areas along the Riviera Maya before you said, "Nope, I'm going to move to Puerto Morelos," or did you just get to the end of the road in Puerto Morelos, look out at the sea, and say, "Nope, I'm stopping right here and not going any further south"?
It was probably a combination of the two. I think when I first started, I had, been kind of the same story that everybody has as they find what's south of Cancun. I was in Cancun and decided to look elsewhere. And so, got in my car and went down the coast. And obviously the first stop is Porto. And what I've always loved about Porto to me is the most Mexican town on the coast, and that's what's so appealing to me. So I have traveled, and I've traveled all parts of Mexico, but I did initially move to Porto. But, even in traveling down the Riviera Maya, I think every town kind of has its own niche and its own flavor, and you're going to find what you love. I just kind of hit the jackpot and found where I wanted to stay at and moved if I'd found somewhere different. But I loved Porto, and I ended up staying.
That's awesome. Now, I know that you're a mom of two. Now, did you have kids? Did you bring your kids with you, or did you have your kids in Mexico?
So, great question. Caden was an infant. He was about a little less than a year old when I moved. And then he's 13 now. I can't believe it. I'm the mother of a teenager. And then there was, so I had him, so I had a place, and I was basically living in Mexico most of the time, and then did end up having Caden in the States, and then really committed and sold everything and moved down full time when he was about a year old. And then Easton, my youngest son, was born in while I was in Puerto Morelos. He was born in the Galenia Hospital in Cancun.
Wow. Now that's amazing.
And that will be 9 years ago as of May 10th.
Amazing. Now I'm sure, we have a lot of moms who listen to the show, a lot of families. Now, was it difficult? Was it difficult raising your kids here in Mexico, or what were some of the challenges and that surround being a mom and raising your kids?
I think there's enough challenges on your plate, being a mom and raising kids and maybe working, throwing that into the mix as well. I can tell you that I think my life would have been very, very different had I had my kids in the States. And why I say that is because I definitely enjoy spending a lot of time with my kids. And I don't know that I would, and I'm also kind of a workaholic, so those things definitely compete. And in Mexico, I was able to afford in-house care for my kids. I had a nanny that she didn't live with us full time, but she came in the mornings and she stayed through until I got home from work. And between her and then having someone come in and kind of deep clean the house in between, and she kind of helped things get dinner started and took a great care of our kids. I've basically had 2 nannies throughout the time that I lived in Mexico, and they've become like family. I mean, they're almost like a grandma to the kid, another grandma to the kids. And one had to move away because her family was having health issues. So she moved home, and I got another lady that was awesome. But, that really allowed me to go and work and come home and enjoy family. I wasn't, doing laundry and cleaning and doing all the other things that would have taken time away from my family time. And so being in Mexico, I think, really changed what happened in my life, because I wouldn't probably have worked full time had it not have been that I had someone that I could afford and someone that I could take care of my kids, especially when they were real young, which allowed me to work. So that alone changed things in a big way. Having kids in Mexico in general, you probably could put a price on it. It's probably a pretty high price tag, but your kids grow up bilingual. And when they decide to, go on and do their own things, being fluent in Spanish is certainly a huge asset. The schools in our area are excellent. Now, I can't, necessarily say that might be the case wherever you move in Mexico, but certainly the schooling in our area, and when I say schooling, I'm referring to the private schools that are available. They're affordable, they're bilingual, and they're excellent. So we're really lucky in our area to have a lot of great schools that really, are options. My kids have been in school. We've kind of done it both ways. My kids have been full-time in bilingual schools. And then when my life sort of required me to travel a little bit more and go back and forth and do some things because of my family, I have homeschooled for quite a while too. And there are great homeschool options. And I've hired tutors that have worked with them full time over in Mexico. I've homeschooled them. I've had them in online schools for some years. So we've kind of run the gamut and done a lot of different things. And I've loved each of them, and each of them have, fit our situation as needed. But, I think that there are a lot of great options, and I don't think that there's any drawbacks to raising a kid in Mexico. I mean, it's just been such a phenomenal opportunity for them to not only learn the language, but also, be exposed to another culture and the travel. And where we're at, everybody's from somewhere else. So the breadth of people that they've met has been incredible. It's just an awesome place to raise a family.
I'm sure the experience is priceless for your kids. That's just amazing. And there's times, and I think you certainly can relate, and a lot of the guests we've had on the show, some days it's really, really frustrating, whether it's electric or water or just the basic day-to-day things here in Mexico. And then to raise your kids on top of that, some days get a little bit trying, and, kudos to you for, raising 2 great kids that have just an absolutely life-altering experience growing up in Mexico. Yeah.
It's been awesome. And sometimes I know being in Mexico, you think, oh my gosh, this this wouldn't work this way. And then you know, what's funny is, as I've spent more time back in the States since moving full time down there and spending time with my mom and dad and things, you go, oh, you know what? This happens at home too. Turns out.
Yes, it does. As we were just, before we started talking earlier, we were talking about the internet and how we've experienced some of the same internet issues no matter where we are in the world. We just think it's Mexico, but no, same internet issues and connectivity problems no matter where we are.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. It came up in conversation aside from today. It came up in conversation just the other day. I mean, I was in the bank and there I was in, my local hometown bank back in the States and just about a month ago and went to send a wire transfer and they had to do it twice and then their system went down. Then I had to go see the manager and I had to wait in line. And I thought, oh my gosh, this really doesn't just happen in Mexico. Here I am 2.5 hours in the bank, and I'm not in Mexico. It turns out it happens all over.
Yep, it does. So talk to me a little bit about working in Mexico. Tell me a little bit, I know you're involved with real estate. Do you do a lot of sales or are you more on the property management? And was that the reason you came to Puerto Morelos, was to get into real estate?
Well, yes. Originally, so when I moved to Puerto Morelos, I was at that time living with a guy who I ended up marrying. We're no longer married now, but I was married to someone who we did originally. He was working with a group of investors and they were buying pieces in Puerto Morelos for investment. And so kind of how it's interesting how it sort of organically snowballed. At the time, Puerto Morelos was pretty rural and there weren't any real estate offices in town. So you had to do your own homework about what was for sale. And we, of course, were looking at all sorts of things, not only in Puerto Morelos, but we also kind of went down to Bacalar and looked at some stuff, looked at stuff in Playa del Carmen and in Maroma Beach, and really kind of had tabs on what was for sale on the coast and looking for our own business purposes. And in that experience, I learned a lot about Mexican real estate. I mean, we, focused on some land that maybe had some issues. And so we worked through that. I learned a lot about how, the intricacies of Mexican real estate worked. And so I was kind of doing that. I was focused on that. I started in property management kind of by accident. My property management career and what became the property management part of the office started because a friend of ours was going away for the summer and said, hey, Amber, would you mind paying my electric bill as a favor? And I said, oh, sure, I'll pay your electric bill for you. And I was going into the electric company because then you couldn't pay it online. So I was going in and you had to go into Cancun to do it. At the time, there wasn't a payment in office in Porto. And so going into Cancun to make a payment and somebody said, oh, if you're going in all the time, hey, would you pay mine?
I know how that goes.
Yeah, it sort of snowballed from, paying people's electric bills to paying more things for them. And I started managing kind of on accident, like I said, a small group of people's places that, they just didn't want to have to make the trips in to pay bills. And then it became, hey, we're thinking about leaving. Would you look after our place when we're gone? And then that snowballed into, hey, we're thinking about renting our place while we're away. Would you look after our guests if we sent them down? And that kind of then got us into, not only property management, but vacation rentals. And then, in the background, really what I was doing was looking at land. And so people would come to me to find out what was for sale because obviously we weren't buying everything. And I was just kind of handing them over information that I had. I mean, I wasn't a realtor at all. And I'll never forget, there was a time where someone came, they found me, we were on a 3rd and 4th floor apartment, and knocked on my door at 10 o'clock at night and said, I hear you know what's for sale in Mexico. And my husband finally looked at me and said, you need to get an office.
Yeah.
And so I didn't feel comfortable just hanging my shingle. At the time, there wasn't really requirements to become a realtor, although that has kind of happened between then and now. But I did go, and in 2006, I became federally certified to sell real estate in Mexico. And so I took my federal certification because I felt like I needed, I didn't feel like even then I was really qualified at that point to sell. And so I went and got my federal certification, and I later got my federal certification to sell in tourist zones. when that became available. And then now there's state licensing requirements. So now we're just in the process of doing the state license. The company is now licensed, and now I'm able to apply as an individual, and I'm in the middle of that process. And everybody's kind of in the same boat. They've just passed this law, and everybody's kind of getting grandfathered in, but we'll be state certified soon.
Awesome. And tell me about your blog. You've got a great blog.
Yeah. So the blog, that, originally it was to really get to a group of people, and continues to this day. I'm not exactly sure when my blog started, but I think it was around 2007 or 8. I'd have to go back and look. But I started it shortly after, and there were so many changes going on, not only in Puerto Morelos, but in real estate and real estate law as things were modernizing. And it was back when there was a lot of antiquated information on the internet, and there still is. You have to kind of be aware. We're sort of pontificating about how things should be, or how, and it wasn't real accurate. I mean, bless their hearts, they had their intentions in a good place, but it wasn't real reliable information, or it was outdated. It was correct, but at one point, but it just become outdated. And so I really started the blog to help my clients keep abreast of what was happening in town, and then on a bigger picture, what was happening in Mexico as things modernized. And it's become this kind of resource for Puerto Morelos. And now, now there's, Facebook, and there's so many Facebook groups. And so a lot of people get their info from there. So we still keep up the blog. We certainly keep up things that are for sale and what sells. People can keep tabs on that, town events, keeping an events calendar there. And any major changes that go on, I still blog about it. So the blog still definitely has a place. And it's been a great way to expose Puerto Morelos to a bigger clientele. We, have gotten to be on TV shows from that blog, and all sorts of, the New York Times found me through that blog. And so it's been a great, not only tool for our business, but really helpful. I mean, I still get emails every day from people that have found the articles we write about how to read your electric bill, or how to read your water bill, or why can't you flush the toilet paper, And so even stuff that was written a while ago is still really helpful, and I'm still, fielding questions about it. So I'm loving that people are still finding it, useful and relevant, and we've kind of changed things up to keep it relevant for everybody.
Well, I think you definitely have a lot of content to be able to write about, because there's been a lot of changes in Puerto Morelos, obviously since 2004. But right now, I love being in Puerto Morelos. I love the vibe. Lots of great new restaurants and new faces that move into town and everything. And so, I think your blog's has a great opportunity for people to find information out about what's happening in town.
That's it. We want to kind of put a face on town and what's happening. And, we kept in mind originally that, a lot of our clients are snowbirders. And so, didn't want to kind of keep them up on what's happening, especially while they're away. And then also, obviously the readership has gotten much broader. And so we definitely, keep everybody up to date on what's happening. And that's, it's been fun. And it's interesting because I end up meeting so many people that are like, I feel like I know you because I've posted like, hey, we went on this trip and we went down and visited Punta Island, and here are my kids fishing, and this is what we did. And so all of these people like have this relationship with me and my kids and things that we've done. And we haven't really gotten a chance to meet in person, and then we get to meet in town, and they're like, I feel like I know you and I know your kids and you don't know who I am. Here, let me shake your hand. My name's so-and-so. So it's been really neat. It's been a great way to connect with people.
That's awesome. And, and I love to, what I love listening as you're talking, Amber, is the fact that I can hear the excitement in your voice, and that you love Puerto Morelos and Mexico very much. And do you have a specific passion that keeps you going? Is it business? Is it the fact that, you've got a great place, a great nest for your family? Is it what keeps you, locked down here in Mexico, with your roots dug in, saying, man, I just look forward to my every day?
That's such a great question. And I think, going from a young family to now I've got older kids, and, it's just been so interesting how your needs kind of evolve and your interests kind of evolve as time goes through. And Puerto Morelos has managed to be a hub at every phase. Like we've never outgrown or not moved past, I guess that's not the right word, but just, evolved to where Puerto Morelos wasn't meeting our needs. And so we as a main hub. And so, I do love that town. I absolutely love that town. That Puerto Morelos to me is home. I've actually bought a second home now, but Puerto Morelos is still home. And there's, that's such a great question. It's the people, obviously, in town that you've developed relationships with that make something home. Puerto Morelos is only 15 minutes from the Cancun airport. And so, I tell people it's easier for me to get somewhere from Porto than it is to get somewhere. If I were in a lot of locations in the States, I'm closer to the airport and I have more direct flights to anywhere else than probably anywhere in the world.
Oh, it takes more time to get. No, it takes more time to get to the top of the hotel zone in Cancun than it does to get to Puerto Morelos.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm just 15 minutes from, one of the world's busiest airports with the most direct flights anywhere in the world. I can be to Paris, France 5 days a week, so
wow.
Puerto Morelos in one respect feels like you're just sort of on this remote dot. But in another respect, you're surrounded by people from all over the world. You're just outside of one of the busiest, airports in the world for tourism, which means there's a lot of nonstop flights, which is just awesome. And so it has just really met our needs at every step of the way. And those needs have changed over time. But, from, affordable childcare and welcoming, work environment, which allowed me to start a business. And, it's a haven for entrepreneurship and just the fascinating people that come through. And I like its vibe. I mean, I'm not a big party girl. And so people that in Puerto Morelos probably aren't, or if they do, they're a short step to Cancun or Playa to look for that. But, it's pretty laid back. And the other thing that I think was one thing that was really important, especially in having kids, Puerto Morelos has, obviously everybody that's on the Riviera Maya in general is there for the beach, right? If you're not a beach person, you're probably not finding yourself on that coast. And one of the things that's just so awesome about Puerto Morelos is that we have the Reef about 500 meters from shore. So that means that Puerto Morelos becomes a snorkeling haven and Mecca, right, to snorkel. But what it means on a more daily basis for me when I had kids or, my clients, if they have grandkids, is that the water's really quiet. It's almost like taking them to a lake because it blocks the big waves. And so it was such an awesome beach for my kids to be able to go and spend time at the beach at because they weren't getting crashed over by waves and you don't have riptides and you don't have all the things that you have sometimes up and down, different parts of the coast. And so it's just a great beach for families. And so if, you find yourself there because you're a beach person, well, it's an awesome beach. So,
will you tell me, Amber, I just want to double check. And the Reef, correct me if I'm wrong, is the Reef offshore in Puerto Morelos is also a marine sanctuary. Is that correct?
It is. It's actually, so it has a national park status and it is a marine sanctuary. So we are a national park in Mexico. And with that national park status, it means that the activity between the shore and the reef is restricted. So it really becomes a more natural beach. So I always tell people, if you're looking for natural beach where, because this is no judgment from me, people look for different things, right? And so if you're wanting somewhere where you can jet ski and parasail and all of that type of thing, they don't allow that within our reef. So if you like that type of thing, that's awesome. And there are great places to do it up and down the coast. If you're looking for something where you want to swim and kayak and windsurf, those activities are allowed inside the reef. Boat activity, because it's a national park, we've had a boat. We don't have a boat now, but we've had boats before, and you're allowed to come into the reef at certain speeds and, throw your anchor at certain places so you're not damaging the reef. Snorkel boats are permitted on really strict permits so that there's not too many snorkelers to be able to control, reef damage, things like that, to keep the reef healthy. But then there's fishing and all sorts of things. It just goes on outside outside the reef. So it really changes the beach, the atmosphere in Porto, because it isn't a lot of the typical water sport activities that you find. And you're either going to love that or you're going to be looking to go somewhere else because you want to, jet ski or do those types of things. So if you do, there's certainly other beaches that are great for it. But yeah, Puerto Morelos is definitely, like a few other places on the coast, a more natural beach.
That's beautiful.
Which is also helpful too when you've got kids and families. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, you mentioned a little bit earlier in the conversation that you've traveled all around Mexico. Is there a favorite place that you have that you really love, or a place that you would like to get to?
Yes. Living, yes, and yes. It's hard to say if there's a favorite. So there are two things that are tops on my list in Mexico. One, obviously, aside from, I love the Mexican people in general. And so I love learning about their cultures and meeting them. And they've been the most gracious people wherever we've been. And I think that's kind of overriding wherever you go. I do enjoy the beach. And so, obviously it drew me to that Caribbean coastline. But I have definitely tried to take advantage of living there and seeing different places. I am a foodie, and I'm also a Mexican folk art junkie. And so those two things, the food in Mexico is excellent wherever you go, and it's so regional. So I love traveling because, wherever you're at, you can find the local food, and it's usually delicious, right? So I don't worry so much about the food. But I do travel for folk art. And so
I love folk art. So you're talking my language. I love it.
Yeah, right. So, I feel like I need one of those signs that will travel for folk art. My folk art travels and finding some of the Mexican masters of folk art have taken me to some of the most obscure towns and dirty, dirt roads in Mexico. And I have to say that there's one place that I think as a folk art person I enjoy the most, and that is in the town of Uruapan, which is in the state of Michoacan. They have one of the largest folk art markets the week of Semana Santa. And it's put on by Fonatur, which is how would I describe them? They're a government entity that promotes the arts and tourism and culture. And they put this on, and the artisans from all over Michoacan. Michoacan's known for its artisans. I mean, there's a lot of, obviously artisans outside of that state too, but there are a lot of really talented artists in Michoacan with their typical arts for that region. And they come and they bring things to sell. And then there's a juried art fair. And so you get to go in and see some of the best works by the masters in those particular areas of art. And it's just phenomenal. So I would say that's probably my favorite place on earth is Uruapan on a Semana Santa week. But that being said, gosh, I can't encourage people enough to use, Cancun is a great airport. It's got not only flights out, but it has flights, internationally, as we talked about, but flights all over Mexico. Oh my gosh, go. Just whatever you're into, whether it's the amazing, Mexico has Copper Canyon. It's 3 times the size of the Grand Canyon, and most people have never heard of it. Like, go. There's an amazing train ride that'll take you through it. Or, if, the big canyons down in the state of Chiapas, it's another favorite place of mine. Just gorgeous, gorgeous eco kind of tourism. But, yeah, I think of all the places I've been, and there's still a very long list of places I want to see. But I think Uruapan, the week of Semana Santa, is the one that's near and dearest.
Awesome. That's really cool. I'll have to check out Semana Santa. For those of you who are listening, Semana Santa is Easter weekend, which is one of the busiest weekends in Mexico all year long. So it's a great time.
It's busy, and a lot of people are traveling, and I actually love to travel that weekend or that entire week. And why is because, like if you go to some of the colonial centers of Mexico that week, they're always having really cool events. different, religious processions, and lots of busyness. And so it's a great time to travel in Mexico and go to some of those bigger and also more rural areas. But that's a great week to travel and really experience some of the really cool cultural things that happen traveling during that week. It's a really neat time to be in Morelia or Oaxaca or Guadalajara or some of the cities and surrounding areas, because they just have so many neat cultural things going on around that time.
I couldn't agree more. And I think also, if you've ever been in the Riviera Maya during Semana Santa, the beaches are really crazy. So you can always use that as an excuse to go inland to Yucatan or over to Chiapas or Oaxaca to get a good dose of culture.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a great excuse to get out of Dodge and go see something else. So yeah, no, it's one of my favorite times of year to travel.
Let me ask you this, Amber. If you had 3 tips or recommendations that you could give people visiting the area so that they would have a more authentic experience, what would your recommendations be?
Oh, that's a good question. Okay. Well, if they were visiting Puerto Morelos, if they're visiting Puerto Morelos, let's limit it to Puerto Morelos. If Puerto Morelos, for those that don't know, there's the port side right on the water. Okay. The highway kind of divides our town. There's the port side that's on the water. And then behind the port side, at its deepest, it's about 3 blocks deep. There's a mangrove. And after that mangrove, there's the highway. And then there's the other side of the highway. And then also in Puerto Morelos is a road that we call the Ruta de los Cenotes. It heads out past the highway and into more jungle area and out to Centro Vallarta. And that's all part of Puerto Morelos. And so if you look at that as a total area, I think 3 things that you have to do if you were coming to Puerto would be, 1, obviously you are in a national park in Mexico that is reserved and preserved for its amazing reef. So if you don't snorkel it or dive it while you're there, I think you've missed a huge part of Porto. So definitely that would be, it is so shallow in so many places. It's a great place for snorkeling. We also have diving, but you definitely have to get out and see the reef. As far as specific things to do, I would say, Porto, even though it's small and it's sleepy and, people kind of joke it's Puerto Muerto, although it's really not. There's a lot of things going on, but it's definitely more laid back. We still have tons of great food. And so I definitely would tell people to, make a point to hit every taco stand you can while you're there. Take advantage of some of that great Mayan cochinita pibil, which is my favorite. And I always seek it out wherever I go in one of these Yucatecan towns. So definitely check out the food. And the other thing that I think that to really experience Porto is get out of the port, go down that Ruta de los Cenotes, so the route of the cenotes. And cenotes are these big watering holes, and it's fresh water. So our peninsula is full of limestone, and through that limestone are these underground rivers, and they surface in different areas. And they usually surface and it's underground, and it's like a cave-like setting where the cave is over you. And as time goes on, that cave ceiling will partially collapse. And so some of these are underground. Some of them are partially collapsed, and it's kind of back in a grotto kind of setting, or they're fully collapsed and it's a big open swimming hole. And they're gorgeous. And, there's a lot of archaeological reasons that they're important. The Mayans used them for a lot of different things. And so there's some historical significance to them. Definitely, I would try to get out and see that part of Porto too, because if you don't, you've kind of missed a huge section of it. I mean, it's just those cenotes are gorgeous. They're typically located in the jungle areas, and our jungle in Puerto Morelos is full of sapote trees. And in Puerto Morelos history, Puerto Morelos got put on the map. I love telling people this. Puerto Morelos had a post office in 1900.
Really?
And it doesn't have a post office now, but it had a post office in 1900, yeah. And it was because it was a port. It was a major port for the chicle, which is a sap that comes from the sapote tree. And they were much like it's a little different. You don't tap it like a maple tree. They actually made these sort of crosswise cuts in the tree that ran the sap down, and they collected the sap and they shipped it out for chiclet bubblegum. It was the start of bubblegum. And so that whole historical part, when you go out to a lot of these cenotes, some of the trees still have the hash marks from this sap farming that was going on. And it's a really cool place of Porto. And it's a lot of, if you hang out, of course you want to hang out around the square and see everything that's going on and that type of thing, but really try to get out and see some of those cenotes and visit the Ruta de los Cenotes, because it's such a cool part of Porto that a lot of people miss because they just don't even realize that it's out there, and it's just gorgeous.
Those are great recommendations. I have a question for you. I heard about, is there an ice cream place that's in a church in Puerto Morelos?
Yes, there is.
Is it good?
If you are, it is a one-stop shop. If you're in the town square,
yep,
there's a church very prominently on the corner of the town square. And as an annex of the church, they have an ice cream shop.
Okay.
There you go. So you got to stop and get some.
So you get a little holy water and ice cream all in one stop.
Exactly. It's probably the only time, ice cream becomes, I suppose what kind of it is, but a religious experience. But yeah, it's definitely worth a picture.
No, I've heard about it and I've never stopped, and I always forget when I'm there. And so it's always on my list, but I always want to ask about it because I forget, and I always heard about, no way, not in a church, really?
Yeah, it's there. It's pretty funny, but good ice cream.
Good to know. Amber, I want to thank you for your time today. And how can people reach out to you, whether they want to connect with you about being a mom, some great things going on in Puerto Morelos, or they want to come down and get a piece of paradise, move down there? How can people reach out to you?
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, Kay, thanks so much for allowing me to chat with you today. It's been a pleasure. You and I have known each other for a while, so it's always great to reconnect. And so first I want to take, the opportunity to thank you for that. If people want to get a hold of me, I at the top of my blog, it says Puerto Morelophilia, which is the, great love of Puerto Morelos. And I certainly have it. If you have any questions at all, I always tell people, please contact me. To find me, my company is called Mayan Riviera Properties, and my email is very simple. It's amber@mayanriveraproperties.com. We do, check out the blog. It's PuertoMorelosBlog.com. You can subscribe to that if you want to kind of keep tabs on what's happening in Porto. And then we actually do this whole series of webinars. We're doing a series of webinars in 2017. So even if you're not in Porto, keep an eye on that blog. We have a special page on there for them. We do all sorts of great webinars, and I don't intend them to be sales pitches, but we do webinars on all of the frequently asked questions that people have if they're talking about moving down to Mexico. Things that everybody comes into our office and asks, right? So we made it into a webinar. We've got one of those. We talk about how to buy in Mexico, not just in our area, but in general. Like I said, it's not really a sales pitch. I just want people to have a great experience in Mexico. And so we have people coming out talking about how to get long-term visas. We're going to be talking about, issues if you own, considerations if you own property in Mexico, like what kind of tax filings you need. We're going to have some seminars on that. And they're all online, so you don't have to be in town to do them. And so I just encourage people to drop in on those if that's something that they're interested in. It's a way I connect with people, and it's always been a passion of mine to educate people on how to do Mexico well, because doing Mexico well, it's so fun and there is so much opportunity. And I just want to share that with people. So I'd encourage you to get a hold of me through any of those avenues.
Beautiful. And we'll have links over to Amber's blog and her contact information on today's show notes on locogringo.com/podcasts. And of course, if you can't track down Amber, you have trouble reaching her for some reason, or you just didn't write down the URL, you can always contact me, askkay@locogringo.com, and I'll hook you up with Amber personally. Amber, it's been fun.
Yes, thank you, Kay. I so appreciate it. It has been fun.
It has been. I hope you'll come back again sometime.
Anytime.
Are you ready to move here and raise raise your family like Amber did? Now, Amber can certainly help you in Puerto Morelos, but even Amber's going to recommend you to contact By Playa for any properties you're interested in for Playa del Carmen, Acamal, and Tulum. Now, the folks at By Playa, they're really friendly and knowledgeable. They've got an international staff, and they're referred to as what is known as a buyer's agent, which means they're going to do the work for you and do their due diligence to make sure that the properties that they show you have a proper title, or escritura, it's called in Spanish, but it has a clear title, and the people selling the land are actually the people who own the land, which is pretty important. They also have lawyers that specialize in fideicomisos, which is a Mexican trust, and they can address things like capital gains, and you can discuss it right up front so you have no surprises along the way to closing. So we invite you to visit our friends at byplaya.com. Thanks for joining us today. And hey, before you go, you may have not known this, but we have a concierge service. Now, Loco Gringo for years has been committed to helping people have just an incredible vacation beyond the ordinary. Not only through all of our vacation rentals, we've got some great houses and boutique hotels, but we have a concierge. And our concierge, Paulina, is available not only to our guests, but to everyone who's coming to the area. Paulina can help you with all the fun things that your vacation needs, and as well as some of the practical things that you might need, like cart rentals, maybe airport transfer, some of that type of technical stuff. But she can help you with all of those types of services. We also have a directory, locogringodirectory.com, which is a service directory of over 1,500 services here in the Riviera Maya and Yucatan Peninsula. So please reach out to Paulina anytime. Her email address is concierge@locogringo.com.
Thanks for listening. If you like the show, be sure to subscribe. For links, show notes, and more information, head on over to locogringo.com or give us a call toll-free at 800-478-0081.
Porque se tragó la luna, estaba enferma la rana, su madre soba que soba, dedos de pluma la panza, pensó ranita que luna, era una toronja blanca, y aunque la luna es de leche, la leche estaba cortada, croa, croa, dedos de pluma, croa, croa, dedos de agua, croa, croa, dedos de pluma, croa, croa, dedos de agua.